Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Monday, the 13th of January. I'm Derek Clark, and it brings me great joy to say that we're joined by JJ, the two J's. Jonny McFarlane joins us. How's it going, Jonny?
Delighted to be here, Derek. Slightly cold here in the office today, so I'm wrapped up, but looking forward to the chat.
Yep, good stuff. Joshua Barry also joins us. How's it going, Joshua?
Good. Probably not overjoyed, but still good to start my week off with you both. How about that?
Yeah, we'll take that, yes. Right, let's crack on because what a weekend it was on Planet Rangers, really. The big news wasn't entirely all about the football this weekend. Rangers defeating St Johnstone, pretty routine 3-1 win yesterday. We'll touch on that first of all, of course. It was pretty much another game of two halves, you could say. Rangers scoring all the goals in the first half, racing into a 3-0 lead. Hamza Egeman opening the scoring to continue in his rich vein of form at this moment in time. And other goals from Václav Černý and Mohamed Diamandi looked like Rangers were going to go on and score a fair few more. That didn't materialise. St Johnstone scored a goal from a corner just prior to the protest taking place on the 55th minute, and the game sort of petered out from then on in. It was a pretty subdued and quiet Ibrox, I've got to say, until that walkout in the 55th minute with the Union Bears and some others heading towards the exit doors to protest against the running of the club. Of course, it was met by some audible boos and from some sections of supporters as well. And it was a pretty strange atmosphere yesterday at Ibrox. Jonny, in terms of the game itself, of course, it was overshadowed with what was happening in the stands, but what did you make of it?
Well, game of two halves, wasn't it, Derek? That's all there is to say. First half, I thought Rangers were pretty good, to be honest. Slick, moved the ball about reasonably well. There were some structural issues, I think, still going forward. Neil McCann, I thought, expertly picked those up in the post-match analysis of the game on BBC Sports Scene. In terms of the first half, though, watching it live, there's another goal from a cutback, which is nice to see. Josh has been talking about that and explaining why it's such an easy way to score goals, and it's good to see that Rangers scoring more goals like that. Hamza Egeman gets another one. Well, that's 11 and 12.
Yeah.
He's having an incredible impact. And just lovely second goal. I mean, Danilo with a really, really nice ball. Playing in that number 10 position, which I think might actually be his best. I'm not sure. Danilo's a number 9, an out-and-out number 9. I think it's kind of a 9.5. Lovely pass, and I think the finish is delicious. Like there's not been enough said about that Černý finish. Just a little darting shot past the keeper, and then of course the third goal is just a defensive calamity by the St Johnstone centre half. And you're thinking, wow, this is looking good. 30 minutes in or whatever it was, and you're 3-0 up, and Rangers can basically take this game really. Go to town here, or take their foot off the gas and relax. And I think, unfortunately, probably for the atmosphere in the stadium, which was already dicey, by the sounds of things, they took their foot off the gas, and then you got a very, very poor, I think, second half performance, marked by yet another dreadful goal to lose from a set piece where Yanis Hadji is the man covering the big towering St Johnstone centre half that nods it in. And I noted that after the game, Clement was asked directly about goals from set pieces and individual errors and what he was going to do about them. And he kind of said, yeah, well, it's about winning those duels. Well, I'm sorry to Philippe Clement, but Yanis Hadji's never going to win a duel against a 6'3", 6'4" centre-half. It's just not going to happen. So I don't know why he was picking him up. Maybe Josh can explain that, but to me, it just made absolutely no sense.
Well, I've actually not watched it back because, as we'll get into, the football kind of wasn't the biggest thing this weekend. But I think if it's the same way Rangers have been defending corners recently, it's their zonal markers are towards the front post and the kind of protecting the goalkeeper. And then what you see a lot of teams do it's always like a game of chess, isn't it? Either you go, if you go zonal, some teams will try and call your bluff by then targeting the area where you don't have the strongest headers of the ball. And you've seen, since Liam Kelly's come into goals, you've seen a lot of teams do that back post delivery. Hibs did it quite a lot as well, because they know that maybe he's not going to be able to dominate that area. So I can't say I've watched it back extensively, but that would be the instinct. And I'd agree with you that it's not an issue that's going away at the moment, but probably when Jack Butland comes back, he can catch those balls more easily, would be my rough takeaway. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that it was the same thing Clement spoke about when Rangers conceded that set piece goal against Hibs last week, kind of focusing on individual duels as opposed to overall structural issues, which actually kind of ties into how he has identified Rangers' issues in kind of outfield situations as of late. If you remember Motherwell away, when Rangers concede that really poor first goal, Robin Proper loses his duel, and that's what Clement focuses on. Hibs, I think the kind of post-match debrief was very similar. So that's, I think, a pattern of Clement. Probably tells you how he views the game tactically quite a lot. It's about duels and individuals as opposed to maybe an overall change that he'd make from the side of the park. Yeah,
I just think it's ludicrous that you would say, the individual has to win his duel when you're talking about a massive height and power disparity, a creative player up against a big burly centre half. I just thought it was a bizarre thing to say. Yeah. I think if you explain that you've got zonal marking and that these things can happen if the back post is targeted or whatever, you might not want to say that and highlight it, but this is
I agree.
Football. People are going to pick it up anyway. So you're as well just explaining it truthfully rather than coming out with that sort of thing, which is just silly, I think.
Yeah. On the issue of zonal marking, I've said it before, get it in the bin. I hate it. Scott Girvin also says zonal marking doesn't work. Players can shirk responsibility on that. Go man for man until the end of time. I'm dying on that hillside. But not a fan of zonal marking. So I think if another issue, I think Liam Kelly coming in for a bit of criticism with regards to that goal. Jonny, he's someone that likes to stay on his line, doesn't he? I like my goalkeeper to come out Fabian Barthez style and come out and claim balls from aerially.
Derek, who's your favourite Rangers keeper of all time?
Gorham, probably.
Yeah, did he come out for many balls?
No, he didn't, but he was a tremendous shot stopper. But I tell you,
I thought my computer had frozen for a second there.
I just said Fabian Barthez. If he had joined Rangers, he'd have been my favourite goalkeeper. He was absolutely outstanding.
My point is that the greatest goalkeeper of all time for Rangers didn't come for a single cross. Now, he did have Richard Gough and John Brown and Dave McPherson and Terry Butcher in front. Well, no, he didn't have Terry Butcher. That was before. But you understand my general point. I think it's fine being like Liam Kelly is if you've got the guys there to head the ball away. But when you don't, I think, you probably need to come out to it. That said, if you're genuinely ropey at crosses and you're a better shot stopper, which I think is the case with Liam Kelly, maybe you're better not highlighting your inefficiencies and you're better to stick to what you're good at. It's a real challenging one. I'm like you, Derek. I like a big goalkeeper to come out in modern football, clutch that ball out there. But different keepers are good at different things. I think the problem with Rangers at the moment is the decimating injuries at the back are going to make it very, very difficult to have a cohesive defensive line, regardless of what happens. Clement is certainly not a miracle worker. And while he deserves criticism, and I've already criticised him in this video, I don't think it's going to be a situation where you can expect any manager to put together a defence based on the injuries that they have right now and see a level of fluidity and not be any mistakes. It's absolutely essential to me that Rangers get another defender in during this window, whether that be short term or not. And the sooner John Souttar gets back, the better. I think we were talking about when he was injured, that it would be towards the end of January, early February, depending on how it was going. And I think all is going reasonably well based on what the manager said. So when he comes back, I think you're going to see a big improvement from Rangers at the back. And that can't come soon enough for me.
Joshua, what do you make of Clinton Enciala yesterday?
I thought he was pretty good, to be fair. I mean, it's a difficult game to judge him within, again, because he didn't actually have that much to do defensively. But you looked at when you looked at the St Johnstone team, Kim Pioka and Mackenzie Kirk in particular, I think it's Mackenzie Kirk, is his first name, a lot of pace. And I thought the game overall, Derek, I thought again, it felt like the football being at Ibrox yesterday, and I don't know what other people who were there thought, but certainly from the press gantry, it felt like the football really was secondary. Everyone was kind of watching the stands. Obviously, as we'll get on to discuss, the topics from the day before kind of dominated, and Rangers I thought they were really good in the first 25 minutes. I also thought it was a game that really suited them because St Johnstone tried to play. There was periods where they sat off, but if you look at where Rangers goals came from, I think the first one was a quick throw in. The second goal came from actually really good Robin Proper tackle after St Johnstone tried to play through the middle, and therefore there was those gaps. And the third goal comes from kind of a quick forward ball, obviously that defensive issue. Mohamed Diamandi scores. So I thought for Rangers being really good, also the opponent kind of suited them without trying to look at that too pessimistically. And then from that moment on, again, I thought it was an example of St Johnstone sat back a little bit more after that. Understandably, you're 3-0 up, you're 3-0 down, you're bottom of the table. It's 25 minutes gone. You probably want to go into damage limitation mode. And I think from there, you again see something we come back to all the time, which is Rangers' lack of control and possession, I would call it, to really... I think if you're a really good team on the ball and a team that's at their most comfortable when they have a lot of possession, when you're 3-0 up, you go and put that score line in that game right away, and you change the mood at the end, because the mood, I think, in regards to the protest and how many people left and what was going to happen, that was definitely helped by it being 3-0 early on, Derek. But had the game yesterday been 5 or 6-0 yesterday, which it could have been based on the opening 25 minutes.
Should have been,
yeah. Then I think the mood coming out is slightly different, albeit I don't think whatever happened on the pitch yesterday was going to alter the overall picture too much, because it was just a weekend where I think while not that many people walked out yesterday, I don't think that is a ringing endorsement of faith and trust in the current project. I think it's an interpretation of how people protest, and they're entitled to do that and to still want to support their team. But it was a weird atmosphere, and speaking about it to Chris in the video after, it was kind of eerie, but just a bit strange. Obviously, no singing from the Union Bears, which you're kind of used to in these matches. But I thought more than anything, it was just Rangers have 16 domestic games to play now. They came into that game 18 points behind. I mean, when was the last time that their league season was in effect done by the beginning of January, not the middle or the end of January? So tying in all the other news from the weekend, that definitely dominated the mood at Ibrox yesterday.
I want to see an issue. I want to come back to the issue of control. Alan McInnes, with a point I just started here. He says, guys, don't you think the reason we start strongly then tail off in matches is because we only play with two midfielders? Hard for them to keep control for 90 minutes. Is that a fair point, Joshua?
I don't think it's so much to do with formations or even profiles. I think it's just how Rangers play. Like the example I always go back to as of late is if you look at how Diamandi, the penalty that Rangers conceded against Hibs, who was it that went down? Was it for the game to go 2-1? It was Hadji on Josh Campbell. If you look at how Rangers, look at the build up to how Rangers concede that penalty, Derek, they're 2-1 up. They actually started that second half a little bit better, I thought, compared to the end of the first half. They lose the ball initially. Václav Černý tries to play a 1-2 with Nico Raskin, who runs forward. And then they lose the ball a second time when Diamandi, who has a huge gap to cover because the centre of the pitch is quite unprotected, he wins the ball back. Instead of playing a simple pass and maybe trying to circulate possession, he tries to go forward quickly. I think Rangers are a team who always generally want to go forward quickly, which in an opening 25 minutes like yesterday can work, which in Europe, when you're well organised and you obviously have good players as they do, that works. When you have to set the tempo and open teams up and control the game in a different way, I just don't think that lends itself as much to the overall football idea Clement has. So that's kind of my main takeaway from it. Every positive of a system that you see in the first 30 minutes, you know, that cross that Sanders heads into Diamandi, normally that doesn't result in a goal. That's a type of pass you see Rangers play quite frequently. And early on in Clement's tenure, when he was turning defences, when Rangers weren't losing the ball in bad build-up areas, when they were maybe not creating tons, but they weren't conceding tons. That worked. But over the last number of months, especially away from home, this isn't Rangers away form isn't like they've been unlucky in a few games, or as I don't think, or as Clement said, they've shot themselves in the foot, or they've not won their duels. It's a pattern of these type of games don't suit them as much away from home because they can't control them as much away from home, and that's why the results have been what they've been, even in the last 4 away games.
James, with a point here, he says, we seem to be running out of energy in the last 20 minutes. Is that down to fitness or the quality coming off the bench? Don't think the subs made a great impression when they came off the bench. Serious question marks. I know he's coming back from injury, but I'd like to see more from Oscar Cortez at this moment in time. I don't think we're seeing enough from him. There was a bit of frustration that we never seen Bailey Rice on the bench, Jonny, given the manager's comments the last week saying that he's going to be part of the first team dressing room after the Dundee game. Wasn't even in the match day squad. He was quizzed on why he wasn't in the squad after the game yesterday. He says, he said, what did he say? He said, of course, I'm watching that. I'm watching all the games of the second team live when I can be there. I saw you at the few games in that way. It's an important part. It's also deciding when it's a good moment to bring in a young player. It's sometimes also to do with circumstances. Bailey is taking the good steps. You can say after the game, it was a good moment to bring a young lad and to give him minutes today. That's hindsight afterwards. Maybe it was not a good moment before the game to do that, and you need to make choices in that way. But Bailey's making the right step. He's really happy with the plans we have with him. He's making the next step now to come into the dressing room, and he'll probably take minutes in the next couple of months. Yes, it's about performing on the pitch in the training sessions to get that. It's not just a guarantee that you go to the first team and then you get minutes. Again, Rangers are, I know it's 3-1, but that's an opportunity surely, yes, to bring on some of the young boys, no?
Yes, but as the manager said, it's easy to say that in hindsight. It's a very difficult game. You've got the backdrop of the fans walking out. There's been 2 results in a row that haven't gone Rangers' way, and there's a lot of pressure. So I can understand from that point of view, while Clement would say, do you know what, I'd rather have more experienced players on the bench that I can throw in case this is really going wrong. The way the game panned out, of course, you would want Bailey Rice there to throw into the mix. To me, it sums up why the SPFL need to reintroduce an under-21 rule for the bench. Remember, back in the day, I can't remember the exact year this came away, but there used to be 2 spots that had to be under 21. And I would reintroduce that, to be honest. I think we are having a serious crisis in Scottish football with regards to the introduction of young players into the team. And it's not just Rangers, it's every club in the top division. Celtic, Aberdeen. People think Motherwell are doing particularly well, and they are the best in the league. But let's be honest, it's still probably not good enough, even the best in the league. We don't have a culture of blood and youngsters. We have a safety-first football culture, and I think that needs to change. So Bailey Rice, for me, is an uber talent. He's one of maybe 5 or 6 youngsters that I've seen that I think will have a really, really good career just based on what I've seen in youth teams. To me, there's a wonderful talent there, and I think he needs blooded. And I don't think it's going to be enough based on what Clement said. I'd rather see him go on loan, Derek. I'd rather see him go to a Motherwell or go to a Falkirk. They play really good football. John McGlynn's a really, really good coach down at the championship level. They're fighting for a league title down there. Something like that, where he's going to actually play and learn and be forced to adapt to men. I think that's more valuable than 180 minutes over the course of a season in the Rangers top flight. Now, there's obvious benefits to training with the first team with Rangers, because the challenge of training may be even greater than the challenge of going to play in the championship with Falkirk. But I think Bailey Rice, what did you say? Now is he 18? He's not a spring chicken. And I think the problem that we have is that in this environment here in Scotland, we say 18, 19, 20 is still young.
I know.
And it's wrong, In other countries, they don't have any problem throwing 18-year-olds in. In fact, it's not, they don't even bat an eyelid. Here, it's like, oh, young kid coming on, 18. That's how they see a 16-year-old, in Spain or in other countries. So I'd like to see Bailey Rice get more of an opportunity. I don't think he's going to get enough, and I think it's time for Rangers to utilise their loan system much more effectively. They've, to me, not done well with loans. Can you name one successful loan that Rangers have had where a youth player has gone and really, really brightened up that club and come back and kicked on? The last one that jumps out at me is Charlie Adam, when he went to St Mirren, scored the goals that won them the championship, came back and became a real good Rangers player before he got his move down south and then had an established Premier League career. I honestly can't remember too many. Alan McGregor, maybe another one.
Yeah,
St Johnstone did well. Dunfermline.
Yeah, Dunfermline got him to a cup final, of course. But yeah, those are the only two that's
way back.
Yeah, those are the only two that spring to mind, really. Let us know in the comments, folks, if we have missed any. But yeah, it's not necessarily an avenue that works well for Rangers. But yeah, I was disappointed not to see Bailey Rice not even in the squad at the weekend. I thought if I was given the manager's comments, he would have seen him part of the matchday squad. Of course, the big news, Joshua, was the protest. It stems from the meeting that you and Chris were at with Patrick Stewart and Fraser Thornton on Saturday, where they discussed why they were backing Philippe Clement at this point in time and why they're going through an external review of the football operations at the football club. The Union Bears issued a statement on social media saying they were walking out on the 55th minute on Saturday evening. And that materialised, of course, some fans booing that. You were at Ibrox yesterday. You've touched on it there. This is my view on it. I think everyone has the right to protest. I don't think anyone's happy with the way Rangers are being run at the moment. Not too sure booing the fans that were walking out was doesn't really sit well with me, but I can understand why some fans feel a bit aggrieved by the Union Bears and their actions. What did you make of it all?
I think people are just frustrated overall, which you can understand. And as I say, the pervading kind of emotion that you felt, I thought yesterday at Ibrox yesterday, was apathy. It's always said that that's the most dangerous emotion at a football club. And I think that's true. When Rangers went 3-0 up, and I've done a piece from the game yesterday, 3-0 up at home in the Scottish Premiership, kind of regardless of circumstance, you expect it to be quite lively. And yesterday, Ibrox it was just a strange day. And again, you can understand it because there's been so much change. I think there's been so many different promises, so many different regimes, so many different managers over recent years, Derek. I think the most positive thing, in my opinion, that to come out of that media meeting with Patrick Stewart, obviously people can read it all on the website, was the fact that Rangers are conducting this external review, because the biggest issue I think they've had is that it's kind of been the same people driving the same decisions, looking for managers to get them out of the situation they are in. And you see this to different extents with Michael Beale and Philippe Clement, and I think an over-trusting in a manager to sort an issue that is more deeper rooted, that is longer term, and requires long term to get out of it. The difficulty is in that intervening period, how do you engage supporters? How do you build momentum? How do you win trust? Because I don't think that's really there at the moment. So there was more toxic games, I would say, Derek, towards the end of Beale's tenure. Thinking of even when Rangers won the 1-0 win over Motherwell a couple of weeks before he was eventually sacked, and the 3-1 defeat against Aberdeen, that was more toxic than yesterday. But yesterday was a strange kind of, had a strange apathetic feeling that was added to by the lack of singing. I agree with you. I think people can kind of protest as they want. There'll have been people who stayed and see that as supporting the team, but they're still not supporting the overall regime. Patrick Stewart is being given, I don't know if keys to the kingdom is the right phrase, but he is being given operational control. And that is a really important distinction to make, because as we've discussed before previously, it's been different chairperson, all with a financial stake in the club, being the ultimate, decision maker, having the ultimate power. I think only in going external, whether it be with Patrick Stewart, whether it be with this review that is set to happen, will get Rangers out of the vicious cycle they've been in. Now, sticking with the same manager, I don't think that necessarily solves that. I don't think just doing the complete opposite of what you've been doing means that you're going to get the desired results. But at this moment in time, I think Patrick Stewart is thinking we'll stick with this, and it'll give us time to either see if Clement can turn the away form or allow Rangers to make the best decision in the long term when they do appoint a new manager. The risk is short term. Can you keep the fans engaged and on side? And because there's a lot more domestic football to be played, isn't there?
Yeah, I think it was understandable protests were going to happen after what's unfolded from that meeting with the CEO and the chairman the day prior. Philippe Clement was quizzed in his press conference about the backing that he's had from Patrick Stewart. This is what he had to say.
And I spoke with Patrick already a lot. He's not long in the building, but I'm very happy that he's here. I've been 6-7 months sometimes feeling alone in the desert and addressing things to make better in the club, or that I saw things digressing because the situation, I feel, is very motivated to make things better, and that will help. That will help me, that will help the football department, but it will help everything inside the club. So I'm happy that we can have really open and sometimes critical discussions about things.
Jonny, can you understand Patrick Stewart coming out publicly backing the manager? There was many that wanted him to sack him, it's fair to say, but he's undertaking this external review to assess where the club is before making a call on not only the manager, I guess, just what's going on at Rangers, but the protest and Patrick Stewart's support. What do you make of it all?
I wasn't surprised, Eric. I think that if the board and Patrick Stewart were to move to sack Philippe Clement, they would not want to put in a manager mid-season. We've seen that doesn't work. We've seen it with Michael Beale. We've seen it with Giovanni van Bronckhorst. We're seeing it again probably right now with Philippe Clement. What happens is, and we've seen this rinse and repeat, the manager comes in to deal with a failing squad. There's a manager bump, as there has been and often is with many clubs. That bump is brought down to earth by an Old Firm game, and then it's back to the drawing board. Then there's another Old Firm game defeat, and you're going into the next season with fans and pundits saying, can this guy get the better of Brendan Rodgers? Well, he's under major pressure in that first Old Firm game of the season. And then what you have is by October, November, the Rangers manager is under serious pressure and it's time to change again. And the cycle repeats. And I was told by a very, very senior Rangers source at the start of this season that this cycle would be broken, that they would not sack a manager mid-season. You take that with a pinch of salt, because you say to yourself, this is Rangers. If things go wrong, and let's be honest, going out of the Champions League at the first hurdle, meaning you lose the £5 million bonus for reaching the playoff round, losing the first game at Celtic, being 15 points behind, by January. These are just about as bad as it gets scenarios. And I thought to myself, if those kind of scenarios play out, then Philippe Clement will be like the rest. I don't have a great amount of faith that Philippe Clement is the man to take Rangers forward, I have to be honest. And it's for the reasons that Josh outlines. It's the sort of structural problems with away games. It's structural problems in terms of the way they attack and the chances they create. I don't see the foundations that lead to the building of a beautiful house that takes Rangers to a league title. I just don't see it under this manager. I might be completely wrong on that. He has won titles in Belgium in the past. But fundamentally, I think if you sack Clement, you've got to put in someone temporarily. And if you put in someone temporarily, like say, for example, a Kevin Thompson, a Stephen Davis, what I would describe as the staunch choice, a former Rangers legend, someone that can come in, understands the club, hit the ground running because they know the league. The problem is if it goes wrong under them, then the pressure on the board intensifies massively. So they might just be thinking, look, keep him until the end of the season, give him the opportunity to turn it round. It's less costly than sacking him, and he is there as a lightning rod to take the criticism when things go wrong, rather than the criticism going directly to the board. Because that's what would happen if a new guy came in and was unsuccessful. And I certainly, as I say, going back to the original point I made, I wouldn't be advocating for a full-time appointment at this stage so you can check out the players and you can set up for next season. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. At Rangers, you're judged based on every game you play. And that's the major problem. So I can understand why he hasn't done it. I don't think it's going to make Patrick Stewart very popular.
No.
The easiest thing for him to do would be to come in and say, let's get rid of the manager. The fans have had enough of him. That would certainly, I think, improve his standing in their eyes. But I can totally understand the thought process of breaking this cycle of mid-season sackings. And Patrick Stewart said a number of interesting things in his press conference. And the main one that stood out to me, which hardly anyone's been talking about, was this consistency of a well-run club and not making rash decisions and not doing things in January. And the key thing when he said the manager no longer buys players, the club buys players, which is something that you see at elite clubs, but I think it's quite novel for Scotland. That's an unusual concept. And I expect that to become a sort of tabloid media trope over the next year or so, because that's going to be a lot for some people who've got quite fixed mindsets to get their heads around. And we see it in the Premier League, we see it in Italy, we see it in France. But for Scotland, where we're about 10 years behind sort of culturally in a lot of areas, I think that in particular is going to be a bit of a head scratcher for some. But what it does do is it shows you that whatever work they do in the January window is going to be part of a long-term restructuring process of the team. And hopefully it means that the club is breaking the cycle of, well, the manager wants this guy and the manager wants that guy, but the next manager that comes in doesn't have a style that fits these players. Yeah. I don't think Clement is going to be the Rangers manager at the end of the season. I'll be clear on that. He might be the Rangers manager on the last game, but I think by the time the season ends and we're looking forward to the season after, I just can't see Philippe Clement being the manager. It would require a massive turnaround. And I think that what's needed in terms of the squad is 4 or 5 or 6 really good players to add to the quality that's there, with other players leaving. And that's not going to happen in January. So I don't think Rangers are going to get much more than what we've already seen this season. And I fully expect the gap with Celtic to be something like 25 to 30 points by the end of the term, unfortunately, for Rangers fans.
Yeah, well, he's been given an opportunity by the CEO to turn things around here. Some of the comments, you can read everything Patrick Stewart had to say over on the website, but some key points. He said, I need to make some tough decisions. It comes with the role, but I'm committed to making the right ones for Rangers, not just the popular ones. So cutting to the chase, we are backing Philippe at this time as a board. It's about taking a deeper look at the issues, addressing those problems and staying focused on building a stronger future for the club. Changing a manager isn't a silver bullet solution. You know where I've worked previously, and that isn't something that has been effective there. It's not effective at a lot of football clubs where there's a constant change of manager. What I do need to do, and what the board are supporting me with, is uncovering the underlying issues and addressing those. And there's been quite a lot of supporters' comments. And one that particularly jumped out at me was, some supporters' comments are, we want to change a manager. I think others are, look at this, isn't just about the manager, it's more about what's going on at the football club, because there's been several years where we've been underperforming, and there's something deeper rooted there here, and I agree with that. So I think that's what we need to do. We need to look beneath the surface. Managers and coaching staff will continue to come and go in the future. That's understood. Again, that is football, but what I am looking to do, again, this is a team effort, is build a solid foundation and a real long-term football plan for the club. What did you make of, you were there, Joshua, what did you make of Patrick Stewart's comments?
Yeah, I largely agree with Jonny. I think that the situation Rangers are in, they need someone to be accountable for decisions, and that's been one of the issues, is who's accountable for last season, the season before. The manager is obviously always the kind of emblem
the fall guy.
The fall guy, but it just hasn't worked. What Rangers have done has not worked, so they need to change what they're doing, and I think they need someone to make bold decisions. This season is done in terms of the league, right? The Scottish Cup, it's not. So I think Rangers have looked at it and thought, right, Clement's shown in cup football, the margins against Celtic in those last two finals have been very thin, very small. And if you go back to, obviously, the referee decision that played a big part in the outcome of the League Cup final, and also the 3-0 game against Celtic in January, I think they'll look at that and they'll look at Europe and they'll say, right, there's a platform there that's working, that if we rip things up now, might not work until the end of the season. Now, is that the ultimate goal? No, the ultimate goal for Rangers is, are they a sustainably successful Scottish football club in Scotland, which they're so far away from? To get to the root of that, I think it takes time. Something like this external review. I agree with what Jonny's saying, that the changes in recruitment has been back to the summer window. That is a good thing, because you need coherence and consistency in that, but beyond managers, between different managers. But you also need the kind of, I would say, the football ideas. Call it what you want. I've heard people at Rangers call it football DNA. You need that to exist beyond different managers as well, because, and that's not just mid-season when things change, you need consistency. But you can't have a manager coming in and setting the tone as much as Rangers have had, unless they are an absolutely elite manager who's going to be here for a long time. The position Rangers are in, they don't have more money than Celtic. And at the moment, they don't have a better squad, and I would say a better domestic manager than Celtic. So how do they bridge that gap? Only with a long-term plan. They need to get that long-term plan right. And I think before Patrick Stewart came in, and even at the moment, if you're looking at Clement's long-term plan for domestic success, I am not sure that like Jonny, I'm not sure that works. I don't think that bridges the gap sufficiently, because we've seen enough body of evidence, even with injuries, even with difficult circumstances. However, I think Rangers have looked at this and thought, we need to get this right in the long term. We need to get, as and when it happens, and presuming it does happen, the next appointment at some point right, unless Clement's able to totally turn it around. I think they've taken a calculated risk looking at Europe and the Cups. The league's over. They need to get the next season right. They need to do this external review. Is it going to be popular? No. Sometimes unpopular decisions are required in the short term. The sympathy I think you've got to have with supporters is it's not they've not made these decisions. And Patrick Stewart hasn't been around here a long time, and that's why there is the ongoing frustration at the board as to why Rangers are in this situation again, where their domestic season is over before it's really started. So that would be my kind of general take on it. I think that there was a lot of interest in ideas. The difficulty Patrick Stewart has is he doesn't come into this in like an isolated context. It's not as if he's the first person to even be the CEO in the last couple of years who's spoken about significant change and sustained success. It's like how many times can a Rangers manager now say rebuild? Never, because it's just been absolutely done to death. So that's the difficulty that he has. He's made a bold decision to back him publicly. However, if you read between the lines, he also says that no job, he can't give any cast iron guarantees, and the away performances in particular have to improve. So, you saw, as Chris and I discussed the other day, Ineos backed Ten Hag publicly when they came in. I think they handed him a new contract. They gave him more influence in the transfer window than I think Clement has on Rangers transfer window in terms of identifying targets. And Ten Hag was out the door not that long after. But during the intervening period, there was work in the background to get who they believed was the right man. That was a convoluted point, but I hope I got there in the end.
Yeah, a 3-month review, external review, Johnny. I'm interested to find out who these football people are going to be that are going to be drafted into.
It'll be a consultancy like a Deloitte or something like that. It'll be a professional consultancy.
There are some that wanted a managerial change before now, but it looks like Philippe Clement he's got a stay of execution anyway, so an opportunity for him to turn around matters. He mentioned yesterday about turning around the away form. That has killed Rangers this season. The home form has been what you expect from Rangers. They've only dropped 2 points at home all season. Away is where their problems lie.
Derek, just in terms of that review,
yeah,
I was speaking to someone the other day who works in football, and they were quite unimpressed at this idea of a review. Their point of view was, look, at the end of the day, you've got a guy that's come in who's been the CEO of Manchester United. He's a football expert. He's been at that club for nearly 20 years. He knows what good looks like or what good should look like, and he should come in and just be implementing that at Rangers. He shouldn't need to hire external experts at great cost to come in and look at everything in granular detail. He should be doing that. That's what he's hired to do. And my point back was, well, Patrick Stewart was kind of faced with that question at the briefing, and he said that he didn't want to apply a Manchester United solution, which is his experience, and he didn't want to apply a Rangers solution, which is the experience of the people in the building. He wanted someone with no stake in the game, separate to them, to give their advice on what needed to change so that they could make lasting difference with the best information available. I kind of understand that, to be honest. But I think the time scale of the review, and by talking about the review now, people are going to be going, well, when's the review coming in? When's the review finished?
Yeah.
What's the result of the review? And you can't really talk about it because it might be that, well, you need to restructure the coaching department or restructure the youth department, or the medical team's wrong. And you can't really go back to the fans and be like this, and this. The reason I'm talking about this is because this happened before. You remember in a very difficult era for the club in about, I think it was 2014, you had... is it Graham Wallace? Was the CEO at the time, former Man City.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is the sort of Spiv era of Rangers management, but I think Graham Wallace, to be fair, came in with a good pedigree and left quite quickly, because I don't think he was fully aware of what he was walking into. And then when he realised he didn't hang around for too long. But I remember him saying, we've got this review, you need to give me the time to go and have a look at what's happening at the club. I'm going to be root and branch on this, and then I'll start to implement changes. And it just kind of became this thing, like in the background, when's it coming? When's it coming? When's it coming? What are we learning from it? And then, of course, nothing really changed, nothing really happened. And I'm a bit sceptical about it, to be honest. And the release of this information about what it'll achieve, like I say, he who doesn't learn from history is doomed to repeat it. And I suspect that we're going to go down that route in terms of the public perception of this review. That's not to say that it doesn't need to be done. And there isn't a good argument that the club and every department of the club needs looked at. Just to give you a wee top line on that, or a wee bit of evidence, you look at the medical team, the situation last year. Clement came in and said, look, I'm going to fix this. Players are not fit enough. He kept saying it over and over again. They're nowhere near fit enough. The medical team, there's issues there. I need to make changes. They've done all that, and the injuries this season are still pretty bad.
Yes.
Now, my argument on that would be, welcome to Scottish football. Refereeing is more lenient. We have a culture of aggression and physicality. The pitches are awful once you get into November, December, January, February, or certainly nowhere near the level that you would expect from a truly elite league like England, for example. So as a result of these two factors, you're going to get more injuries. That's why you need a big squad. You look at Celtic, one of the big strengths that they have is they've got a big squad to choose from, and they can rotate out Kyogo and rotate in £9 million Ida. They can rotate out Hatate and bring in Luke McCowan, who has got a track record of scoring goals and performing in the Premiership, and it's not a big drop-off. It might be a drop-off, but it's not a big drop-off. And to me, that's where Rangers have fallen away. I think the squad's too small. It's not got enough depth and quality, and it doesn't matter who the manager is. They're going to have problems with this squad. You know, you get rid of.
Yeah, it's a host of factors. It's not just squad size. I mean, Clement, a lot of the blame lies at his door as well.
Listen, I'm not defending him, but I just think even if if you ask me who my dream Rangers manager would be, it'd be Jose Mourinho. If you put in Jose in charge of this team, I think he would struggle. I think he would struggle, Derek, because there's not enough quality. The squad depth isn't there. So
I don't think he'd be 15 points behind. I don't think he'd be 15 points behind Celtic. Put it that way.
Neither do I.
He would be in the title race.
I think he would be behind with this squad. Don't think anyone seriously thinks that this Rangers squad is a patch on the squad across the city and would win a title with what they have. I don't buy that. I mean, Josh, do you see any circumstances where with this squad another manager is winning this title against a Brendan Rodgers Celtic?
I don't know about winning the title, but I think that to go back to the overall point, I think there's more. I think there's much more to be had. Maybe not much more. I think there's more to be had in a style that is more suited to having a lot of the ball. More generally, I think that you can see away from home in Europe, certain games Rangers look really well set up and suited for that. The basic numbers of Clement being unbeaten away from home in 7 European games, and then having taken I think 3 wins from 11 or 12 in the Scottish Premiership this season shows you the issue. So I think domestically there's more to get out of it, but yeah. I can't remember what my point was.
Well, no,
I kind of switched off.
I totally agree. There's more to get out. Yeah. But I'm just saying, look at the Celtic starting 11 and look at Rangers starting 11, and there's an intrinsic issue there.
I agree. I also think, and there's reasons we don't know as to why, that there's little. I thought, like, for example, Oscar Cortez coming on yesterday, someone who I think can play on the right in different circumstances. I thought it was strange that you saw him play 30 minutes though on the right hand side and Rob McCausland on the left. So I just don't think there's been enough of there's been really difficult circumstances, but I don't think that the domestic plan basically has been good enough. So no, I don't disagree with you. You're not finding me disagreeing with you this morning in general.
I'm annoyed at this. I'm trying to deliberately wind you up.
Poking the bear.
I'm too. The weekend was too long for me to get annoyed at anything this morning, but I think that an external review, what I would say is that if this is it, if Patrick Stewart is here for a period of time, and if this is the start of a 2, 3, 4 year period where changes start to be implemented, Rangers' difficulty is that they've not really done anything for a concerted period of time over the past 3 years. It's all been change. Would Beale have been 15 points behind, or would he have leveled off a little bit? I don't know. I don't think he was the right man to manage Rangers going forward. But the point is, whatever you do, if you continually change it, if you continually change the people at the top, if you continually change the idea is never going to work. And Rangers need to stick with something for a concerted period of time. Celtic have been able to do that with different managers. They've not deviated their style that much. They've had better managers as well. So it's a bold strategy by Patrick Stewart, and if Clement doesn't last, then I think that puts him, again, to go back to his former club, Manchester United, that puts you on a back foot already. I think if you make decisions that you then don't stick with. But I think what we would probably all agree with is that you need to do something bold to get Rangers out of the situation. And if that plan is get the plan in the background exactly right for when that managerial change does happen, if it does happen, the proof's gonna be in what happens. It's going to be a difficult one to judge, though, I think, as you say, Jonny. I'm just agreeing with you this morning. I don't have the. We need to come on after a controversial game again. But
I watched Rangers TV yesterday. I thought it was interesting. A little snippet of the David Holmes programme at half time, looking really well, David Holmes, and he talked about taking over at Ibrox when he did in the 80s and saying how Rangers can't move forward by committee, and how he came in with Lawrence Marlborough, of course, at the time, and revolutionised Rangers. That's what the club require. But unfortunately, I don't see anyone out there shining light that's going to come in and revolutionise the club, unfortunately. So but should go and give that a watch. It looks a very good show that Rangers TV have put together. We always enjoy comedians coming on the show. John McIver says, I heard Derek saying before new manager would give a bounce. That's not what's needed. If you want a bounce, get a castle. So John with the funny pills this morning. But we'll wrap up there for now. Johnny, you want to dive in there?
I was just going to say, adding to the dad joke quotient, which is already massively high by having me and you on the show, Derek.
Yeah, we'll wrap up there for now. Bumper show as ever when Johnny's on, but big thanks to Johnny and to Joshua. Thank you to you all for tuning into the show. Those of you that are extra members on YouTube, I think we'll record our Q&A a little bit later on, so we'll record that around about 2 p.m, so I'll speak to you all then. If I don't speak to you, enjoy the rest of your Monday. And remember, if you are a regular avid viewer to the morning briefing, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, then hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. You'll never miss a video when we go live. Lots of Rangers content over on the channel. Right, enjoy your Monday, folks, and we'll speak to you later on. Bye for now.